Very good morning, everyone, and thank you, Pradeep, for having me here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you all. Okay. So what is that key takeaway from this session is, even before I start that, yesterday, how many of you were there yesterday when Mac was presenting the World Quality Report? Excellent. So Mac made a nice comment that he was surprised about the cloud decline of cloud usage, and also as Gartner, Forrester have bombarded about like the benefits of cloud and that every single organization is going to change their fortune by using cloud, he saw that there's a decline in trend. Exactly 1 year ago in the same STC conference, I presented something called as anti-cloud patterns. And as part of the anti-cloud patterns, this was the same message I gave, saying that cloud is a good solution, but I don't think we are yet there in terms of the consumption for the various reasons. And then it was very heartening to sit and see the same message coming up from the surveys of the CIOs also. So I think some predictions are coming true, so I'm glad about it. So let's see what predictions here come true for the next few years, and then let's see what it is. So my presentation today is factors that will drive the future software testing market. So if we look at it, I think all of us are very blessed and fortunate to really see the entire technology transformation in the last 15, 20 years, right? I mean, the next generation, if you look at a 2-year-old kid, they automatically know what is an iPad, what is an iPhone, they know what is internet. My son asks if he's actually looking at the YouTube, Daddy, is internet down? He's 4 years old, and then he knows that there's an internet, and then there's YouTube and everything. But we are fortunate that we've actually seen the evolution of it, and probably we're also fortunate that we didn't spend our childhood in front of the tablets. So I think we're fortunate in both ways, okay? So on this particular factor of looking at a rapid transformation in technology, every single day, every single month, things are changing, and we all have to catch up on this, right? So how many of you are here a career tester? How many of you are like career testers or are spending majority of their time in testing? Okay. So the second part is majority of you are spending your time in testing, even though you're not a career tester. That's what I was also. So when we look at testing as a platform, and then why did we jump on it? There was an opportunity. India is contributing to be the largest service provider for testing, and almost testing has become a good career path for a lot of us because there's a lot of opportunity and there is a need also. Now all of this is good. How many of you agree that there's a big difference between a classroom world and a realistic world? Excellent. Most of us agree, right? Because when we sit and solve the theories, or when we sit and apply these, some of these great innovations and everything on a day-to-day life, we go back sometimes from the conferences thinking that all is good, but can I apply at least one of that into my day-to-day practice? Do you feel that or not? Yes? So when I give some examples here, I'll try to touch upon those moments also where I want you to take back something and say, how can I apply it on a day-to-day life? Rather than actually giving you a lot of gyan, I'm sure you can get it from Google as well, okay? So some of those will be my personal experiences because I travel extensively and I've been fortunate to be in front of a lot of CIOs and also brainstorm with them on what is truly driving their business and how does quality play an important role in driving their business. And sometimes when we say that quality plays an important role, unfortunately those CIOs respond is, quality plays an important role, but as long as I don't have the pain, I wish I can avoid it. Even though we say that the market is growing and everything, if you really touch the heart of a CFO or a CIO, they still think that QA is kind of an investment, and if the returns are not seen, then I look back at like, am I making the right investments or not? But they don't second guess on their development spend. They don't second guess on their spend for infrastructure, but always when QA spend is there, there's always a second guess, am I getting the value out of this or not? So with that said, this is my first slide on what will drive the future of the software testing market. I think this is not working, so let me use it. So I think this should not be a surprise because if you sit every single day with any of your clients, the first thing they ask is, faster, faster, faster. Can you make it happen tomorrow? Because what happened? The development has squeezed away all the time in the life cycle, but as soon as it hits the testing cycle, suddenly all the pressure comes on QA, and every time you're getting a message that, can you make this faster? Do we experience this on a day-to-day life or not? Yes? Okay. The second is, I've gone into the conferences where they've spoken about testing in the shrinking world, right? How can you do rapid testing? let's do testing in like, 1 week, or probably weekend testings. Weekend testing is a big craze, and in fact, Bangalore also has something. But why does this not apply to the development side of the world? Why is it always QA that, where budgets have to be cut down and cycles have to be less? But that's a reality we live in, right? Then the third factor, you have to do faster. You have to make sure that, you're not spending, but I want the best quality. There's absolutely no compromise, right? And when we talk about the best quality, the next immediate thing is accountability comes directly in place, because when you see a defect in production, how often, even like, forget about us, but even the QA, your clients, or, somebody who's actually driving the client part of it, whenever there is a defect in production, does somebody call the requirements guy? Does somebody call the design team? Does somebody call the developers? The first thing is, how did it miss? Testing, right? Because they feel that I have invested into QA, and then no matter whatever the compromise we have done, I'm already getting last 15 minutes. I think you have to reset the clock. Just kidding. Okay, see, shrinking time as well on the conference. Okay, so every single message, it's like the best quality is what they expect, irrespective of all the challenges, and QA plays a role in the accountability aspect of it. Then followed by the assurance, right? Even our theme of the conference is from assurance to confirmation. One way, you live with all the challenges of making sure that you are testing where you have absolutely no control on all the variables or all the upstream, but you are expected to actually launch this entire China gate with no defects leaking into production, and if there are defects going into production, then QA becomes accountable and QA becomes responsible, and they are expecting the sign-off from QA saying that, okay, when I'm crossing the finish line, you guys are signing off on this and your neck is on the line. But how often when you go back and say, I'm not signing off, your word is totally taken, right? I mean, how often we say that, I'm still not enough, I need another 1 week of regression. Then what is the answer we get back? The testing team is not efficient enough, or they're not doing a good job. Can't you do some statistical approaches on how do you really make sure that you cover everything in the shortest period? How often is the voice heard? It is not heard, because the pressure is always there on QA to make sure that everything has to happen in the given time or agreed time. Okay. Anyway, so these factors are not for the future. This factors is what we live in, and this factors will not change. My message is, even though I give you some intellectual knowledge on the future, the primary factors, what we live in the realistic world, will not change. That's why I want to open the presentation with this. Okay. Man, I wish this is working. Now, before I talk about the future, I want to quickly give you a snapshot on the past, present, and the future. Okay. So first is, I call the phase 0. Who has been into the software world for more than 15 years? Before 2000 world? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, there are quite a number of people. So if you really look at pre-2000, that's where independent testing was not even a mainstream. Independent testing was not there. Developers used to do the testing, but we did have some QA. So probably we had QA of like 20 or 40 to 1 or 2. So for a team of 20, 25 people, you used to have 2 people doing QA, and the role was also not defined. It was confused. Is it like quality assurance, or is it quality control, or is it like more an executive assistant to the project manager? There are all kinds of roles. So I call that as a limited independent testing, or the lack of better term is developer control testing. So we all have evolved from what is called as a developer control testing, where developers tell you exactly what portions need to be tested, how to be tested, and they control the outcome. Even today, they control a lot of outcome. That's a different story. Okay. Now, after that, organizations, industry has seen that no, testing has to be independent. We cannot have development do that. So they have actually changed that process, and then independent testing has evolved, and that's why we're all part of it. So if you look at the phase 1, this is all done, so I'm going to quickly do that in the interest of the time. So the first one is IVNV has become a mainstream, where organizations have realized that testing has to be independent and we have to do it separate. Then associated to it, we have test maturity models also, where in addition to software development lifecycle, we have software test life cycles, which actually have a maturity model as well. In fact, QA is an authorized trainer for TMMI. So like that, we have TPI, TMMI, like that. We have maturity models evolved. Then, as part of the software testing industry, we have even turnkey solutions. So accelerators are there. Okay. And tools have come up, right? A lot of tools, whatever we use today, there are there, okay? And then we have what is called as a career testers. So with all of these accelerators, career testers, turnkey solutions, test maturity models, and IVNV, what are we missing? I think pretty much the basic ground, the vanilla of if you have to do testing, I think most of it is there, except mobile seems to be the gray area, but majority of the rest looks very stable, right? I mean, we have good tools. When we talk about automation, we have really good tools. We talk about performance, we talk about security. There are a lot of tools which have come up. Then after the evolution happened, then there was another phase also what happened, which I call it as a consolidation, okay? There was a consolidation of services and as well as tools, right? Companies have bought companies, and then there was the recent acquisition is like SQS versus ThinkSoft. There has been a lot of acquisition on the services world where companies saw that testing as a niche and then they acquired. Then there was an acquisition on the tools also, okay? A lot of tools have been acquired and then there were all. There is a motto, right? Why do companies acquire companies? There are some goals what they do. Obviously they want to have bigger growth, right? They want to actually grow the size and they want to pretty much control the market space, right? If you are a one-stop solution and if you have the size matters, right? So they want to control the market space. Now, if you look at the tool space, there's a very interesting trend I want to point out. You look at the first three acquisitions, HP, IBM, and Compuware, they were, prior to acquiring these testing tools, they were actually playing in the infrastructure space. HP, you would know them only for their laptops, desktops, infrastructure. IBM, even though they have rest everything, but they're also known for the basis of IBM is the mainframes and everything. They are also strong on the infrastructure. So organizations who are very strong on the infrastructure, test environments and everything, they saw that taking over the testing tools and then actually creating a demand there, they seem to be a natural extension of it, okay? Now, when all of that happened, obviously there are some goals I was explaining, right? So what are the different goals why they did? The first is a inorganic growth, and then they wanted to become the leader in the space. Then they also want to be a one-stop for their end clients, because when you go to the client, all of these big organizations, they love to frame themselves as, okay, I'm your single point solution. You come to me, all your problems are solved, right? They promise pretty much the nirvana state, right? Then business sustenance and talent acquisition. When size matters and everything, obviously a bigger company has its own advantages also, where they are able to sustain, longevity is there, and also enterprises trust most of these big organizations, okay? Now, did this all happen, and did they really accomplish their goals? So by acquisitions, did these companies really accomplish what they wanted? My answer actually is no. And the reason why I say no is because they really missed the market. If you look at HP, HP has been such a strong player in the entire market space, providing all QA solutions, but they did not see what the potential was on mobile. On the mobile platform, I personally feel that they've really missed the boat. IBM is doing good, but somehow I think in their marketing or in their forecasting or bringing the customer value, I think not many people use IBM products even though they are really good. So like that, the market players have lost the race, and that is why it is actually giving birth to a lot of companies, what you see out here, like Neotus and everyone else, who have actually started dominating the market in the niche services play. So as technology transforms and everything else, it's important for us to understand that new players will come in and they continue to drive the market. Now, this is good from the player side and from the economy side, but what will happen to the end users? The enterprises who are investing on these tools, they invest a lot of money thinking that, you know, that will sustain and that will stay. But if you really look at it, in 1 year, 2 years, suddenly their investments are going down the drain, and then they are expected to again invest in more tools. And the biggest irony of all of this is that none of these tools actually have a seamless integration with each other, right? If I'm really looking at a very tight end-to-end collaboration, like for example, a lot of us, thanks to Oracle buying Java, after that Microsoft really, the .NET platform has boomed up. Now, .NET and Microsoft platform promote VSTS, they promote Visual Studio and everything else. But if people want to use QTP, if they want to use Quality Center, then there's a lot of redundancy, they have to really create a lot of integration. So truly, as an end customer, you cannot use the best of breed with end-to-end integration. So that's still a challenge. IBM has put some thoughts in space. So if you go to their Jazz.NET platform, they evolve with something called as OSLC standards, Open Software Lifecycle Standards. They are contributing something into that space, and then they are saying that no matter whoever is the tool, as long as you're actually coming with an OSLC API, everything can be integrated tighter. But that space still has to evolve, okay? So that's on the consolidation phase. Now the next aspect of it is the expansion phase. What is that which drives the future of the software testing? What are the different factors? So there are a lot of factors. I'm going to touch upon some of the key examples because truly this session is longer, but we don't have a lot of time for that. So let's make sure that I touch upon few of them, okay? I personally feel that these are the different tenets which are going to drive the software testing market for the future, and then I'll give you each one of that few examples. So let me go for the first one, the social models. So Pradeep made a comment, right? So we live on Facebook. So earlier, if internet was working or not, when we open a browser and then we click Google. But today, I think most of us have replaced Google with Facebook, right? So the first thing you do in the morning when you open up the laptop is like Facebook. Even on a birthday, we look at, I think gone are the days, so we used to have greeting cards, we used to have personal calls, then we used to have SMS. Now it's all Facebook likes and then number of messages what you got on the Facebook. And then people count on it, and then that's how we live. Social platform has actually become an essential part and parcel of our life, right? And the insane amount of activities what happen on a Facebook is absolutely I would call beyond historical, because if Facebook goes down for a day, I think probably we need to open up some clinics and then say, treat people with some Facebook, whatever, Facebook addiction or whatever it is, right? So social platforms have really, really become a part and parcel of our life. So how do these affect your testing? First thing is, I'm sure all of you know what kind of a craze Facebook had when the IPO happened. In fact, poor thing, they pulled the whole NASD platform down, right? People believed that we don't pump money, but people believed that this platform is going to stay, because most of us are actually spending most of our time there. So a lot of effective ad campaigns are happening, and then Facebook is able to effectively generate revenues out of it. But how do organizations benefit, and what is in store for testing is that, first is, let's talk about each one of those tenets. Crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing, I'm sure you all know, that is definitely going to be the future for a lot of things. In fact, right now also they have a model in the evening where they're explaining you about 2 applications which actually they tested as part of the crowdsourcing. In the diversified field, whatever we are working on, true usability testing can happen only through crowdsourcing, because you are actually reaching out to different genres, you are reaching out to different groups, and then you're actually going after and then getting your testing done. Weekend testing, as I said, weekend testing is another concept which are coming up. Weekend testing, I would say, is more than actually contributing to the applications or anything. I personally feel that this will actually give you the gist or the satisfaction what you want. A lot of us, we actually work in enterprise applications where our lifespan goes like 2 years, 3 years testing on the same application, right? You get frustrated on the applications and then you try to hop the jobs. But these platforms like crowdsourcing, weekend testing will help you, if at all you truly have the passion that I want to really expose myself into a lot of various things, I really want to contribute for several things, then go, spend time, make sure that you contribute and there is a value both ways. Social platforms, what I was telling about is that, let me give you an example. iPhone 5S and 5C, okay, when it launched on the day one, there was a hell lot of a negative feedback about iPhone 5S and 5C because people ridiculed, people had a lot of expectations, right? If you look at 8 years, 10 years ago, the whole product development was much easier because people used to actually conceive their ideas in a closed room. There were some visionaries who thought that this is what the market needs, and then when they push it, people actually take that and then people just use it. But today, the intellectual ability of all the human brains has raised up and the expectations have raised, right? So we know what we want and then we have very high expectations from the market and these provide us on what we want. And prior to launching of this stuff itself, there are a lot of people who think on what they want and then they say that this is the new version which is coming up. I've seen a phone, I don't know what is the company name, I've seen a phone where the phone actually showed that somebody is actually walking in the airport and they're using their phone suddenly to shave them. And then they have used the phone after that, they just turn another knob and then that becomes a coffee brewer. And then the same phone has actually helped them to talk Chinese versus English and then the translation is happening. So the possibilities what they're showing on a smartphone has truly become unlimited. Like there's an app on my cell phone I've put on my iPhone, it reads your pulse meter and then it tells you what's your heartbeat. So you can actually on a day-to-day basis you can measure your heartbeat. So like that, there are a lot of expectations, preconceived expectations what people come up with, and then when those expectations don't meet, obviously you have a lot of disappointments. So social testing and analytics from social become a very integral part, because you might think that you are developing and designing the best product, but if it is not meeting the consumer expectations, that is where you have the reality. And that is actually giving truly the birth for agile testing. If you really look about it, why did agile development and agile methodology take the prominence is because people have understood that if they conceive and deliver in big packets, it's not going to help. So try to actually make sure that you know the big picture, but start actually, evolving in bits and patterns so that you have the ability and you have the luxury to change as things move. But the problem there is that people don't really use agile the way it is defined, and every organization has its own way of developing agile. And where they miss the boat is that the time to react in agile is very less. If you have a software development life cycle which has 3 months, 6 months, you still have time to react. But if you have 4 weeks, 2 weeks of a sprint cycle, every single day productivity is important, right? If you miss the boat, or if one of your engineer doesn't show up as a surprise, you're screwed, because that 10 days period, that 4 weeks period is very short and time to react. So a lot more discipline and planning is involved. Unlike the agile preaching where they say zero documentation, no collaboration, it's all easy, unstructured approach on however you can go. Okay. Next, human capital. From a human capital point of view, certifications have taken a lot of importance, because when we actually have human capital produced in a large volume, it's very important that you have formal certifications, and these continue to add value. So make sure that constantly you reinvest on yourself and then have those certifications. Finishing schools will take more and more prominence. I strongly feel that this will happen, because see, how many of you have learned all of these testing principles, or whatever you have learned in college from your MCAs, your engineering, tell me how much percentage of that you are using it on your day-to-day life, into your real-time world. Does anybody can correlate from your schools versus that? Answer is no, because if we go into our engineering and everything, they still talk about waterfall methodology, or they go back into the 1980s and 90s, the content is not refreshed. So what do? We have no choice. We come out of the college and then we go into the institutes to upgrade ourselves. But the formal definition of it, I honestly say that India is the country which has pioneered this whole concept of finishing schools, to make sure that the talent what is coming out from the universities is actually mined very well, taught very well, and then moved on to the market. Then practitioner turned entrepreneurs are also going to evolve. Mulya is a great example, and I would see that more and more would come into that place. Next, tools. From the tool space, I've already touched upon tools as a evolving market space, and absolutely these tools will continue to evolve, and then they're going to continue to take the marketplace. I'm running out of time, so I want to make sure I'll touch upon some of those. Testing in production is a very, very great concept, and I really want to touch upon a little bit on this. When you actually read Google and everything else, you will know that there are now medical devices that can actually do open heart surgery, right? I mean, you don't need a doctor. Technically, robots are available, and then they can do it. Now, from the testing world, what do we always say? We always say that we don't believe anything, and then we need testing done. So how many volunteers can be there on the table to say that, whether this is working or not working? Can we have volunteers to say that, okay, 99.99% it works, but 0.01% it doesn't work, but let's have some positive test cases and negative test cases around it. Is it possible? Absolutely no, right? Another new video, Amazon Air. How many of you have seen Amazon Air video? Okay, a few of you. So Amazon has taken the shopping experience to the new level, where Amazon Air, what it does is it actually delivers to you the packet with a mini helicopter that actually attaches it and then sends it. How do you test that? Talk about Indian Railways. Everything is electronic and everything is computerized, right? Look at the volume of the trains, what are controlled by the system. How do you really test that, right? Take a Google. Today, even in India also, there are ads which show that, you can search from one destination to another destination, and then it shows you exactly how to go. How do you really test that? How do you really make sure that it is working? Okay. Or the social platforms, Facebook. When you release a change, how do you really make sure that this is all working? So the whole concept of writing test cases, then having some positive test cases, negative test cases will become soon history. Because whatever the number of permutations and combinations that happen in production, absolutely it is impossible to recreate or test them in QA. So that actually leads to this new concept called as testing in production, where what people are gearing up and doing is that instead of preparing a big safety net and making sure that all the testing is happening pre-production, what they are doing is they are maturing their development practices, they are maturing their deployment practices to make sure that if something fails in production, how soon can I send a fix into production? Facebook, can you believe that they almost throw in 8 to 10 releases every single day into production, and they have the ability to replicate across all the 1,000 servers. What people do now is, so that whole concept is, there are two types of testing what you can do in the TIP world. One is called as an active testing and one is called as a passive testing. Active testing is something where you write synthesizers, which is a code that sits in production and gives you analytics out from production and helps you feedback into QA. So instead of saying that Google, all maps will be tested pre-production, if some error happens, that error will be given back into the cycle through these synthesizers, and then that synthesizers will help you. The passive synthesizers are something which are the teleops. I'll show you another slide, where these ops give you the day-to-day metrics, minute-to-minute metrics on what is happening in production, so that you are able to better react onto your production situation. There are a lot of social companies, I can give you examples. Some of them actually do as many as 20 to 25 releases every single day into production. So we are not talking about 2 releases in a week or 8 releases gone, 20 releases in a day. So imagine how matured their development practices are going, and that is going to definitely take the future of the software testing world as well. Next. So the technology testing of it. Responsive web design. How many of you are into responsive web design testing? Okay, so let me go quick on this. I think I have only 5 more minutes. Responsive web design is nothing but the new age development of your website, where the same content can be rendered across multiple platforms, multiple devices, so that the content recognizes from which device you are accessing, and then that is going to drive your entire future of your mobile testing. So that's a great thing for you to tap into. Responsive web design will be the future. Big data and Hadoop and everything, I'm sure you know, beaten to death, but I have my own doubts on the analytics, because some of the organizations are spending 2 years and 3 years. The only message I'll give is, apart from the 3 V's what you search in Google, please look for the 4th V on the big data testing, which is the value. What is the value of the data? Until unless you don't know what you want, no matter whatever the data you're getting, it is a waste. Cloud, I've already spoken, so let me go. So the technology ops, a lot of enterprise platforms are available. Event automation is going to take an importance. It's not functional manual testing. Please look for event automation. Infrastructure testing, only thing I will talk about is Google for Chaos Monkey. Chaos Monkey is something like, for example, when you go on a cloud provider, don't think that just being on cloud is going to help you. You need to make sure that you're able to do disruptive testing on your cloud services also. Just last year, Chaos Monkey is from Netflix. They did an open source of it. So if at all you are going on to cloud-based testing, Chaos Monkey will help you do a disruptive testing of your services, like how it happens in the real world, to make sure that you can handle catastrophes better. Okay? Then organizations, I would say that these two will live together. Silos will be there, who are the big players, the one-stop. Pure plays will be there, which are going to evolve and then give you the value. Okay? Then industry trends, I personally feel that multi-sourcing is the trend. Enterprises are moving away from saying that I want to partner with one-stop shop. Investments will be continued to happen in the QA. We have seen that. Innovation will be a major place. And if at all, one tip is that if your manager says you that, what have you innovated in the last year, please tell them that it's not a process. If it's a process, it's not innovation. So this is my final slide summary. My graphics designer did not do a good job, but look at this. This is how I want to summarize. Does it make sense of all the session, whatever I've covered? Yes? No? Okay, a lot of pauses are there. Let me quickly go to a descriptive summary then, okay, of what it is. So how do I describe my entire summary of what you need to really understand is innovation. Innovation cannot be regularized. Some of us really think that every month, every week I have to innovate something. No, innovation is need-based and it is ad hoc. So please don't regularize it in your day-to-day life. Core proposition of any organization has to be value versus volume. I still see a lot of CIOs having this pain of getting a volume-based discounts and volume-based proposals rather than a value. Vendor selection has to be one-stop. Instead of one-stop, it's going to be always niche providers. Technology progression obviously is going to be outside in. Instead of outside in, it has to be inside out. Career aspiration, off college versus please have these into the college syllabus. Now I'll try to correlate between these two. If this and this makes sense, if it doesn't make sense, then this is a visual refraction theory from physics what I've put in. When you really look at a coin in a glass of water, you would see that that's closer than what it is. So what I wanted to say is that perceived distance versus deceived reality. The reality of testing is that not everything has been accomplished. Your next 5 years, the career testers are going to have a lot of challenge if you don't upgrade yourself. If you think that you live in the world of functional testing, automation, and security, please understand that you will really become extinct very soon. So please understand that innovation and expansion is the key. And then welcome to QA.
Thank you, Raj.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, any questions, guys? I wanted to make sure I have a lot more examples, but the time is short. I really wanted to touch upon key things, but happy to take questions.
Hi, this is Arvind from First American.
Arvind.
Arvind.
Okay.
Your session was good. I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
First thing you said, you spoke about the testing, test in production, right? Yesterday, whole day, we heard about the shift left concept and the cost of fixing in analysis and design is $150 versus $1,500 in production.
Yes.
Is it really a myth, or is there some reality to it? And if the future is going to be testing in production, how relevant is the shift left policy, which we
very
discussed?
good question. You have to strike the balance. Yeah.
And second question was certifications. Is it really relevant? And I feel that it's more like the college, which we do. Certification is more theory, CSQA, CST. I know it's good, but how relevant it is to the industry, and how much can we apply to our day-to-day job?
Both are actually very great questions, close to my heart. For the first one, you really have to strike the balance between enterprise applications versus the social platforms, where if the possibilities are unlimited, and when you are working in the social platforms, please understand that all testing cannot happen pre-production, and you have to leave certain testing into production. And when you strike the balance, I always call it as the cost of quality has a diminishing return on investment. Please understand, there's a very important point. Cost of quality has a diminishing return on investment. The journey from 0 to 70, 75 is your low-hanging fruit. But from 75 to 90 is expensive, 90 to 100 is more painful. Until unless you can't justify the cost, it has its own diminishing return on investment. So when I educate the CIOs, I tell them that how much of your financial losses are tied into QA, and if you are not tying it, then it doesn't make sense to overbore QA to achieve zero defects into production. You have to understand what you really want to test. That's a very short answer, but you can meet me outside. I'll give an elaborated answer. The second one is about the certifications. What people do is, see, I respect all the knowledge what we gain. In fact, my theory is that life is a university where you have to graduate every single day, and I personally believe in that. Certifications are very important because it gives you the knowledge, but until unless if you don't apply that knowledge, it's as good as a waste. And at the same time, I have not done any formal certification, but I'm a Six Sigma black belt. I've done PMP, I've done Prince 2 methodologies, I've done global program rollouts, but I didn't write a single certification, but I've studied like a student to the core all of these. But what the difference I do is that I apply them into the practicals as well. From Six Sigma, I take the metrics. From the methodologies, I take the practices. If you know how to tailor them and apply into the real world, or if you start prototyping them, then only you get the value. Showing that I have the certification has zero value. So applied science, what I mean is that use the certifications to learn the applied science and then apply it into your day-to-day life. Okay, very short answer.
We have the last question.
Hi, my name is Vivek. My question was on this weekend testing that we are talking about. The first thing is, today if I have to test something like a software-based cathode ray oscilloscope or a MATLAB, if I reach out to some forums such as these, how much would it really benefit? Because I'm looking at niche skills and domain skills to test this. The second thing is, as you mentioned in your first slide, the accountability part. If I were to give my testing to such forums, I will still be accountable for the testing that they have to. Is it really reliable? And if it were within the testing organization, I think it's still more relevant. What's your thought on this?
Good question. So I'll answer it in two ways. Weekend testing, crowdsourcing is good, but it still has to mature. Take the example of open source technologies. Open source, the whole concept is that anybody can contribute onto it. 10 years, 15 years ago, when Apache and everything gave open source, none of the enterprises actually took open source because they had their doubts on longevity, sustainability, and maturity of the products. But today, every single enterprise is more inclined to open source. Why? They've seen that this whole thing has matured. Even though a lot of people from various worlds are contributing onto open source, acceptance is controlled, acceptance is defined. So when you actually go for a weekend testing also, make sure that it is controlled. You should be able to control the outcome. You'll get noise, but if you define your acceptance and if you have the right tools in order to make sure that you can achieve that, then absolutely it's a great way to go, because the volume of people you can reach is really great.